Hello everyone and welcome. With the new Evil Dead game releasing, I thought now would be a good time to go through the Iceberg, so let's do it. Tier 1, this consists of all the films and the TV show, so if you've seen them, feel free to skip ahead as I'll try and do a quick bare bones recap for those who haven't. The Evil Dead is the first film and follows Ash, his girlfriend, sister and two friends who vacation at an isolated cabin in the woods. Whilst there, they come across a book called the Necronomicon and a tape recorder which talks of the book and demonic possessions. One by one, everyone becomes possessed and dies apart from Ash, who manages to throw the book into the fire just in time. The film ends with Ash walking out the cabin before an unseen entity attacks him. Evil Dead 2 starts with a recap of the first film, but they've changed it so it's only Ash and his girlfriend Linda that are at the cabin. Linda becomes possessed and bites Ash's hand, turning it possessed before he kills her, forcing him to cut it off. With the bridge destroyed, Ash is forced to stay at the cabin whilst Annie, the daughter of the man who found and read from the Necronomicon, heads up to the cabin with her boyfriend and two locals who know a path through the woods. Again, one by one they all die except for Ash. Before Annie dies however, she reads a passage of the Necronomicon aloud that opens a portal to defeat the Deadites, sucking them all into it, including Ash. The film ends with Ash landing in the year 1300 AD. Army of Darkness is the last in the trilogy and continues on from the previous film. Ash gets captured by the men of Lord Arthur and is forced to fight a Deadite. After killing it and showing off his boomstick, he makes a deal with the Wise Man to retrieve the Necronomicon in exchange for being returned to his own time. Whilst getting the book, he forgets the phrase to say and accidentally raises an army of the dead. After winning the battle, the Wise Man gives Ash a potion to drink that will allow him to sleep and awaken in his own time. Evil Dead 2013 is a remake of the original and follows a group of friends going to a remote cabin to try and help our new main character Maya overcome her heroin addiction. Whilst there, one of the boys finds the cellar in a book called Naturum de Monto. After reading from it and unknowingly unleashing an evil force, Maya starts to see a bloody girl in the forest but is ignored by the group, thinking it's hallucinations from her withdrawals. Just like the original, one by one everyone dies until Maya's the last one standing, having defeated the abomination. Ash vs Evil Dead is the most recent entry in the series and follows Ash 30 years on from the end of Army of Darkness. After getting high one night and trying to impress a girl with poetry from the book, he releases evil on the world and once again has to stop it. I would highly recommend that you go watch it. It's available on Netflix and I genuinely haven't enjoyed the show as much as this. Tier 2 Necronomicon Ex Mortis is the main antagonistic object of the franchise, a book written in blood on pages made from human flesh. It was created by centuries-old creatures called the Dark Ones when they ruled over Earth, and contains prophecies as well as spells and demon resurrection passages that, if read aloud, can connect demons from the netherworld to our own. Book of the Dead is another name for the Necronomicon, but was also the original name of the first film until a film distributor, Irvin Shapiro, advised RAIMI to change the name as it sounded too boring. RAIMI then settled on the Evil Dead, saying it was the least worst title. Naturum de Monto, as mentioned earlier, is what they renamed the Necronomicon to in 2013's remake. It's the only version of the book that's not designed to control the Kandarian demon, but instead the Taker of Souls. The Nobi cabin is where the events of the first film takes place. It's a small cabin in the woods owned by the Nobi family, who are responsible for finding the Necronomicon and taking it back to America. Within the Woods is a short film written and directed by Sam Raimi to help raise funds for a feature-length version that would then become The Evil Dead. Evil Dead Rise is the upcoming film slated to release sometime in 2022. It will follow two estranged sisters who are forced to battle a legion of Deadites when they start to appear in the city. Bruce Campbell said in an interview that it would be completely standalone, not connected to the remake, original trilogy or the show, but with the plans for the franchise before the show came out being for the remake to connect into the trilogy, you never know what could happen. Tier 3 Army of Darkness alternate ending has Ash accidentally taking too much of the sleeping potion and waking up in a post-apocalyptic England that would set up the fourth film with Ash fighting Deadites in the future. However, Universal Pictures objected to the ending, saying it was too negative and depressing. Who burned the cabin? The original cabin where the first movie was filmed was mysteriously burnt down, and despite several rumours ranging from fans throwing a party and intentionally burning it down, to the cabin being struck by lightning, for decades nobody knew how it burnt down. That is, until in 2013 when Evil Dead fan site bookofthedead.com interviewed the original cabin owner who admitted to burning it down himself after being tired of dealing with fans. With the area being used for hunting before it became a local attraction, the owner TL was worried about visitors getting caught in bear traps that had been set decades earlier. Necronomicon origin story. There's two versions of how the Necronomicon came to existence. The first, which is what most would consider canon because it comes from the TV show, is that Ruby, who is revealed to be a Dark One, created the book centuries ago. The other comes from the Hail to the King game and comics, with a man in 730 AD named Abdul Aziz translating a collection of ancient text written by the Dark Ones into a book. Continuity errors. The big errors that most people watching will have noticed is in the first film, Ash and Scotty go down into the cellar to find a Necronomicon, but in Evil Dead 2, Ash finds it in a room. Also in the sequel, it's only Ash and Linda that travel to the cabin instead of the group of 5, and at the end of the film, the cabin's mostly destroyed, but in the show, everything's intact when they go back to it. Cabin ruins. As mentioned earlier, the cabin used for the filming of the first movie was burnt down with only the chimney surviving, but the cabin that was built for the sequel was also destroyed slowly over time. In 2016, after finding out the owners planned to demolish the leftovers of the cabin from Evil Dead 2, superfan Mike Pascal got their permission to try and save as much of the remaining structure as he could, which he documented on his YouTube channel and website that we'll have linked in the description. Rebuilt Evil Dead 2 shed. Continuing on from the previous entry, Mike was able to dismantle and preserve the WORKSHED, which he managed to rebuild in his garage. After touring it round conventions for a year, he ended up selling it to the Living Dead Museum due to his busy work life. Fake Shemps. With Bruce and Sam being massive fans of the Three Stooges, Moe, Larry and Shemp, when the latter died with filming still to be finished for 4 different shorts, the production company were forced to use a stand-in. But with the stand-in being the wrong height and having different mannerisms, the two friends were able to easily identify when the stand-in was being used. So when they shot the first film, which went 6 weeks past its original schedule, they were forced to use friends and crew members to stand in for missing actors, who they credited as fake Shemps in honour of Shemp Howard. Alternate cuts of Army of Darkness. For the third film, there are 4 different versions. The original 81-minute US theatrical release, which is what most people will have seen. The 96-minute director's cut, which has the alternate ending which I mentioned earlier, and also includes new scenes as well as replacing and removing some of Ash's one-liners. You also have the 88-minute international edit, which is a middle ground between the two, including some of the scenes from the director's cut but going for the ending of the theatrical release. And finally, the 90-minute television cut, which, as you would expect, is heavily edited due to the violence and language, but uses some alternate takes to help pad the running time. Tier 4 Fake Cellar. The cabin in the original film didn't actually have a cellar, so most of the scenes down there were actually filmed in the cellar of a farmhouse owned by the family of producer Rob Tabbert. For scenes where they descended into the cellar, a hole was cut into the floor and a shallow pit dug for the ladder to sit in. Evil Dead 2 is a remake. With RAIMI not owning the rights to the original film, he had to refilm scenes for the recap at the start of its sequel. With there being some changes made in the second following a similar concept as the first, with Ash being the sole survivor of the group, some people thought 2 was a remake of the first and much closer to RAIMI's original vision for the film due to him now having a larger budget. However, both RAIMI and Campbell have said that this isn't the case at all and that is indeed a sequel. Bruce actually said in an interview that the proper way to watch it is right as the credits are about to hit at the end of the first film with Ash being attacked by the entity, jump to the second film and start with Ash being thrown through the trees. Evil Dead Regeneration is a hack and slash game that was available on the PS2 and original Xbox. It follows a different timeline where Ash doesn't get sucked into the portal at the end of the second film and he ends up in a mental asylum. While there, his doctor reads the notes of Professor Nobe and tries to use the Necronomicon to become all-powerful, but releases an army of Deadites onto the world. It ends with Ash defeating the Doctor before being sucked into a portal, most likely setting up a game in medieval times that was never made. Evil Dead Hail to the King was a survival horror game in the same vein as the original Resident Evil that was available on PlayStation 1 and Dreamcast. It takes place 8 years after Army of Darkness, with Ash's new girlfriend convincing him to go back to the cabin to face his fears, which ends as well as you'd expect. Ash's possessed hand plays a tape of Professor Nobe reading the passage from the Necronomicon, waking the evil in the woods. After a bit of time, evil Ash, disguised as a priest, kicks Ash into a portal, sending him to Damascus in the year 730 AD, where he rescues Abdul Aziz. It ends with Ash helping Abdul in translating the final pages of the book, and him and his girlfriend being returned to their own time, where the Necronomicon has now become a best-selling book. On-set injury rumour. There was a rumour spread that while filming the final shot of the first film that Bruce had his jaw broken, and for many years people believed it. The story was that for the final shot, RAIMI was riding a motorcycle and hit Bruce with the camera, shattering his jaw, but it's since been revealed multiple times that Sam and Bruce told the crew to spread the false story. Sam Raimi cameo. Sam makes an appearance in each of the films from the trilogy. In the first, he's one of the fishermen that waves at the car. In the second, he plays one of the knights at the very end. And in the third, he makes an appearance during the final battle, arriving with Henry the Red. He's the guy jumping about with the sword wearing trainers. Universal Halloween Horror Nights. To help promote 2013's remake, Universal Orlando included an Evil Dead themed scare maze in their yearly Halloween Horror Night, set in the cabin where you would get jump scared by a handful of Deadites. Stolen cabin chimney blocks. With the brick chimney being all that was left of the original cabin from the first film, fans who visited the site would take a brick as a souvenir, slowly over time destroying the last remnants of the cabin. Tier 5, Invaluable, The True Story of an Epic Artist is an in-depth documentary about the special effects artist Tom Sullivan and how he played a massive part in the original trilogy's success. Evil Dead Commodore 64 was released in 1984 and was the first video game release for the franchise. It had you playing as Ash trying to close all the windows in the cabin to stop Deadites from getting in, whilst killing the ones that had already made it inside. Musical, yes, there is actually an Evil Dead musical. It started in 2003 and after getting approval from both Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, made it to Off-Broadway in 2006 and is still being performed to this day. It meshes the first two films into one story and has rave reviews, including one from Bruce's self. If you live in the US and want to see if it's coming near you, check out their website at evildeadthemusical.com, I'll have it linked in the description. Army of Darkness 2 was originally supposed to be the fourth entry in the series and would follow the alternate ending of Ash waking up in a post-apocalyptic England, fighting an army of Deadites in the future. It was also revealed by Raimi that he wanted to go back and do Army of Darkness 2 in the 2010s and have it tie into a sequel from the 2013 remake, but it was shelved in favour of the show. Freddy Krueger's glove makes 2 appearances in the franchise, first hanging on the wall in the WORKSHED during Evil Dead 2, and then again in the Season 1 finale of Ash vs Evil Dead when he explores the cellar down below the cabin. Time capsule. After filming finished for the first movie, the crew put together a time capsule that they buried at the cabin and to this day it still hasn't been found. Bruce revealed this in an interview and I'll let him explain it.
But no one has found the time capsule that Sam Raimi, we all put in it's in a cigar box. I'm going to say this on live radio here. I think a burned out Fresnel light bulb. So a bulb. There's a bulb. There's a piece of what we called its murder board. Its murder beam. It was a beam I used to beat the character Linda over the head with. In the movie, it's supposed to be like a solid beam of wood.
Right.
We all know it's the U-shaped beam that they sell at Home Depot that is faux beam. You put it up in your den.
Yes.
So there's a piece of that. There's a piece of gaffer's tape, which is like duct tape.
Yep.
That's in there. And Sam Raimi claims that the visual code, the code to unlock the visual meaning of Evil Dead, is in that time capsule.
Wow.
So what you have to do is when you find the fireplace, you freaks who want to trespass and get shot, find the fireplace and then walk about 30 paces across from the fireplace, because that's where the trap door was. We put the time capsule where the trap door was. Get a chainsaw and a good light and defensive weapons and go find it. No one has found the time capsule.
Walking Dead crossover. In Rick's final episode, Season 9, Episode 5, he comes across an abandoned cabin that is a perfect replica of the one we see in Evil Dead. Whilst he's inside, he notices the Necronomicon and the mounted deer head. It is possible that Evil Dead gave a nod back to The Walking Dead in their own show, with Pablo wearing a similar jacket to that of Rick whilst holding his trademark revolver. Kelly was supposed to be Ash's daughter. The original plan for the Season 2 finale was to reveal Kelly as Ash's daughter, which had been hinted at throughout the season, with Ash even dropping some throwaway lines like, "Glad you're not my daughter." They wanted Ash to, whilst back in time, get drunk and have sex with a random woman that would then be revealed as Kelly's mum. However, with Rob Tabbert and showrunner Craig DeGregorio, that was really hard to pronounce, having creative disagreements, the plan was scrapped and his daughter Brandy introduced in Season 3. Tier 6. Medieval Dead was the original title for Army of Darkness. Wes Craven feud. Sam Raimi and Wes Craven jokingly feuded, taking jabs at each other in their films. It all started when in The House Have Eyes, Craven had a torn poster of Jaws on the wall to tell the viewers that this would be a scarier film. Raimi took inspiration from this move and had a torn poster of The House Have Eyes appear in the cellar of the cabin in Evil Dead, and Wes Craven responded, having Nancy falling asleep to the Evil Dead in A Nightmare on Elm Street. Raimi responded with Freddy Krueger's glove appearing in Evil Dead 2, and Craven's last jab was in Scream, where they picked to watch Halloween over Evil Dead. Season 4 plot. With Ash vs Evil Dead getting cancelled at the end of Season 3, not much is known about the plot for Season 4 apart from Raimi confirming that Ash was to explore the post-apocalyptic world as he reunited with Pablo, Kelly and Brandy. Lost deleted scenes. Several scenes from the trilogy have been lost either due to the original film reel being thrown away or just failure to preserve it. Some examples of this would be the opening scene of Henrietta becoming possessed and Lord Arthur's funeral. Kandarian demon prop whereabouts. With the prop that was used as the head of the monster and the climax of Evil Dead 2 being so large, the crew decided to leave it at the cabin for whoever stumbled on it. In '86 it was found in a North Carolina haunted house, but since then its whereabouts are unknown. The barn was an unused location in the first film that stood behind the cabin. It only appears for a few seconds in the final shot of the film when the entity flies past it. Knights of Cimmeria are a secret group sworn to protect Earth from Deadites and find the Chosen One. For centuries they've tried to protect Earth, even being in possession of the Necronomicon, until they were betrayed by a sorceress named Kaya, who was seduced by the power of the book becoming trapped in it. Not a whole lot is known about them, with their only appearance coming in the show. Evil Dead 2, severely edited for TV, is a version of the second film that cut out violence and limited the cursing, but included deleted and extended scenes. Whilst never being broadcast in America, it did appear in Mexico multiple times during the 90s under the name El Despertar del Diablo Part 2. If you'd like to see some comparison shots between it and the original, Book of the Dead's YouTube channel has multiple videos on it, I'll include it in the description. Tier 7, Freddy vs Jason vs Ash is a 6-part comic series that was released in late 2007. The story is set 5 years after Freddy vs Jason, with Freddy getting stuck in the mind of Jason and learning about the Necronomicon hidden in the old Voorhees house. He and Jason's mother convince him that if he can get the book, he can resurrect himself. At the same time, Ash arrives at the new Crystal Lake S-Mart. There were also plans of a film by the same name, but Bruce said that the talk with New Line Cinema only lasted about 5 minutes, as he wanted Ash to kill both Freddy and Jason, which they flat out refused, saying that he could only have creative control over his own character. The Dark Ones are centuries-old creatures that wrote the Necronomicon and once ruled the Earth before being banished. There are 2 different variations of how they were banished. The first is in the comics, where they were defeated by the Chosen One and sent to the Mirror Dimension, which we'll touch on later. And the second is from the show, where Ruby united with the sorceress Kaya to expel all the Dark Ones and Deadites from Earth in order to have complete control over all evil. However, with the Dark Ones gone, humanity managed to become the dominant species and conquer the remaining evil. Evil Dead 2 WORKPRINT is a 37-minute unfinished version of the film that only contains the first and last sections of the movie, with different music and sound cues, unfinished special effects, and a handful of deleted scenes. Again, the Book of the Dead YouTube channel has a compilation video showing some of the differences. I'll have it linked in the description again. H.P. Lovecraft connection. The idea and name of the Necronomicon originally comes from H.P. Lovecraft, using the book in many of his stories but being short on details about its appearance and contents. He actually encouraged other writers to build on his work of the book, feeling it would make the book more believable. The character of Abdul Aziz is also heavily inspired by H.P. Lovecraft's author of the Necronomicon, Abdul the Mad Arab al-Hajred. Evil Dead 2 Army of Darkness. Raimi's original plan for the second film was for the events of the third film to follow the original, but studios told him that the sequel should be closer to the original, so he made Evil Dead 2, giving him a clean transition into the events of Army of Darkness. 2013 Lost Extended Version. Back in January of 2015, Channel 4 in the UK aired the 2013 remake, however, unbeknownst to them, they were given the wrong version. Instead of showing the theatrical version, they aired an unseen extended cut, which contained additional plot scenes, an alternate ending and a lot more gore, containing scenes that the director Alvarez was forced to cut to go from an NC-17 rating to an R. It lasts just under 5 minutes longer than the theatrical release and has never been aired again or included on any of the releases. Tier 8. Mirror Dimension is an alternate dimension that serves as a prison for both the Deadites and Dark Ones. It appears in Evil Dead 2, but it's in the comics where it gets expanded on in its role in the series and its history. There are only 3 known ways to enter the Mirror Dimension: having your soul swallowed by a Deadite, your doppelganger pulling you in through a reflective surface when a large amount of evil is present, and lastly, by a portal. In the show, towards the end of Season 3, the Deadlands is introduced as their variation of the Mirror Dimension. Ash Saves Obama is a 4-part comic series where, whilst visiting the Detroit Comic Con, Obama buys the Necronomicon. After he leaves, Deadites attack the convention and Ash races to Washington DC to save the president before he can read from the book and be turned into a Deadite. Multi-universe timeline theory. Okay, with the franchise having so many entries, continuity errors and timeline changes, fans have theorised that the series has multiple split timelines, and I'm going to do my best to try and explain them all to you. For those only listening to the video, I'll throw up a visual to try and help. You have what we'll call the canon timeline of the Evil Dead into Evil Dead 2 with its intro ignored, into Army of Darkness ending with Ash vs Evil Dead. You have the alternate beginning, which ignores the first film in favour of 2's intro with Linda, the trilogy, which just ignores the show, THQ Games, which has Hail to the King and Fistful of Boomstick act as sequels to Army of Darkness instead of the show, Regeneration, which uses an alternate ending of 2 to lead into its game, the solo films, which is The Evil Dead being followed by the 2013 remake. This comes from its director Alvarez, who said it continues on from the original and that there are no coincidences between the similarities of events, but more of a dark fate created by the book. This timeline also has the possibility of Rise linking in with it. And then the comics timeline. There's two versions of this, the Army of Darkness comics and Evil Dead 2 comics, which follow their films. Hopefully I've explained it well enough. There's some timelines created by people which go more in depth into the comic storylines, but I'm not going to pretend to be super educated on them. Evil Dead 2 talent show. At the film's wrap party, the crew held a talent contest. It's not known who won, but we do know that Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell sang 8 Miles High by the Byrds, with Greg Nicotero on guitar. Evil Dead 2 Revenge of Dracula is a one-off comic with Ash killing Dracula. The plot is simple. Ash meets a woman at a bar who knocks him out and steals a Necronomicon. He tracks her down to Romania where she's resurrected Dracula, who teams up with Ash to defeat a demon before Ash drives a wooden stake into his heart, killing him. Evil Dead 2 Revenge of Hitler is another one-off comic and first in the Revenge of series. Hitler, who had phrases of the Necronomicon tattooed on his body, has been brought back to life and heads to hell to raise an army of the dead to take over the world. Ash, meanwhile, is enjoying life in his trailer in Texas until he's pulled into hell by a demon named Hastur, who explains Hitler's plan. Ash, being the hero he is, agrees to deal with Hitler blowing his head off after interrupting one of his speeches. Equinox 1970 is a film released 13 years before Evil Dead with a similar plot, causing people to accuse Raimi of plagiarism. Equinox is about 5 friends who go looking for their missing professor and come across a strange book that he used to summon demons and monsters which try to kill them. I bled for Evil Dead. For the premiere screenings of the original film, blood donor stations were set up and anyone who gave blood was given a free ticket to the film along with a pin badge stating, I bled for Evil Dead. Tier 9, the final tier. La Casa was the title for Evil Dead in Italy, which translates to the house. However, after La Casa 2, they didn't release Army of Darkness, instead opting to release 3 unofficial sequels, Ghost House, Witchery and Beyond Darkness. Conservative Nation Twitter. Back in 2016, a now deleted Twitter account by the name of Conservative Nation tweeted out a photo that went viral of actress Samara Weaving covered in blood, claiming that, quote, here's what happened to a female Trump supporter when she met peaceful and tolerant liberals. It was actually Bruce Campbell himself who disproved the tweet, informing everyone that the photo was actually from a bloody makeup test for one of the minor characters that appears in Season 1. Earth 818793 is a universe in which most of the Army of Darkness comics take place. It was given the name from Marvel Comics during the Marvel Zombies vs Army of Darkness crossover, with the name coming from each year a film from the trilogy was released, 81, 87 and 93. Tennessee Cabin Horror Story. During an interview, Raimi told the supposed real-life backstory for the cabin that was used in the original film. He told a story of how one night during a thunderstorm a little girl woke up afraid and ran into her mother's room, who lay there dead. Frightened, she then ran into her grandmother's room, who was also dead, and ran into the woods until she was found by a family. Anytime there was a thunderstorm in that area, the legend was that she would appear in the woods. If Raimi laughing while he was telling the story wasn't enough to let people know he was making it up, the owners of the cabin confirmed the story to be fake. Friday the 13th Connection. Jason is a Deadite. In Friday the 13th Part 9, Jason Goes to Hell. While in Jason's house, Stephen comes across the Necronomicon, and director Adam Marcus said that he considers Jason a Deadite, and that's why he snuck the book into the film, saying in an interview, Pamela makes a deal with the devil by reading from the Necronomicon to bring back her son. This is why Jason isn't Jason, he's Jason plus the Evil Dead, and now I can believe that he can go from a little boy that lives in a lake to a full-grown man in a couple of months, to zombie Jason, to never been able to kill this guy. That to me is way more interesting as a mashup, and Raimi loved it. So yes, in my opinion, Jason Voorhees is a Deadite, he's one of the Evil Dead. Lost Evil Dead Baby short film is a short film made by the special effects team during the filming of Evil Dead 2, about them accidentally killing a baby doll and it coming back to life, killing members of the team. I'm not sure why the creator of the Iceberg titled it as Lost, as after a bit of googling, I was able to find it at the very end of Gore the Merrier, a documentary about the making of Evil Dead 2. I'll include a link to it in the video's description. And that was it, the Evil Dead Iceberg. Big shout out to Abandoned Exerf on Reddit for creating it, and thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Peace.